Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast, where real students are doing real deals in the world of multifamily real estate. I'm Vince Gethings, the owner of the Wheelwell Profits Academy. Listen in as we dive into the journeys of driven individuals who are turning their dreams into reality. These people are just like you, taking action and making things happen. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and if you're ready to take action, check us out at wheelwellprofits.com to learn more about our incredible community. Let's get started.
It was limiting beliefs. It was purely the fact that I thought that I was limited to the dollars in my bank account and my own time.
Hello and welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, and mentor. Today's guest was on the show 2 years ago when he closed his first deal. Now he has closed an additional 440-ish more doors, and he's back for more. Lee Fjord transitioned into multifamily in 2017 after starting out as a property manager in 2012. He has built a portfolio of approximately 470 doors in his backyard of St. Louis, Missouri, and is continuing to expand with his team at Green Forest Capital. Welcome back, Lee. How we doing, brother?
Thank you. Oh my gosh, so glad to be able to be here with you today and with your audience, not just today, but going into the future. You are an inspiration, one of the very first ones ever in my life to show me what the difference can be made in this business. Thank you.
You're welcome. The first thing I need to say is I've got shirt envy today. For all the YouTubers on there, Lee's rocking the shirt today. He's got the color today. I got the grayish Jake Gino shirt, and he's rocking the blue. So this is awesome. And Lee, when we first met, I remember the call specifically because I had just started Jake Gino and I just started taking phone calls, and I am in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and I get on with a gentleman named Lee Fjord, and I'm trying to pitch Lee to join the community, and Lee must have thought I was crazy. He ended up joining, and the rest is history. Just do you remember that conversation, and can you take the listeners back to what was the decision before you joined? What were the pain points, and then what happened once you joined?
I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. It's one of the, you look back at forks in the road, and that was one of them, that conversation. I had been an avid listener since day one, since the very first episode. And then, you announced that you were creating the Jake Gino community. And I was like, I got to figure out what this thing is. I was sitting at my desk as a property manager, managing something along the lines of about 200 apartments, houses at the time. Mm-hmm. And sitting at my desk in my office, you get on and I'm like, wow, I'm actually on with Gino. Like, wow, you guys, wow, let's do this. Okay. And it's, hey, I'm building a community. We would love to have you as, a member. Tell me about you. I told you about me. And then literally during that call, I was like, where do I sign up? Here's my credit card. Let's do this. I'm in. Mm-hmm. And it's fast forward from there. Mistakenly, I dedicated my time and effort towards the education aspect of the program and not so much towards the community. I greatly regret that because for the first 18 months after joining, I did the education, but I didn't attend any of the events. I didn't come to the boot camps. I didn't come to any of those things. I didn't have the coach, which I eventually did do with Chris Jackson. And, I should have been more involved because I did small stuff instead. I did like duplexes and 4 families, and I totally would have had more momentum if I'd gotten a coach, if I had been involved in the community, it would have been much better. But it was life-changing.
So Lee, it's the irony of what you're saying is I had those same mistakes. I never went to events early on in my career. I thought I don't have time to do that. I really didn't start coaching until my late 30s, early 40s. I should have started that sooner. What are the problems were you experiencing before you got into, Jake Gino multifamily? Because you're in the business, you are a property manager. Was it more of a mindset? Was it more of I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do?
It was limiting beliefs. It was purely the fact that I thought that I was limited to the dollars in my bank account and my own time. that was it. And, you know, you're so limited if you limit yourself to just what you personally have.
So Mark Twain has a quote. It's not what you don't know that will get you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And if you really stop and think about that, Lee, you have those limiting beliefs. Your idea of, hey, I can only do deals based upon my net worth and about the money in my bank is holding me back. And for all the listeners out there, that's just not true. There are so many different tools in the tool belt. There's creative financing. There's syndication, which we're probably going to get into with Lee because his portfolio has expanded through syndication. What was the difference once you joined the community? I mean, was it just the education times action? What were other things that helped you out on your journey to 470 units?
It was once I applied the, you know, the knowledge provided within the community online and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, you know, I didn't connect myself with the people then. So I went and I did a bunch of like duplexes and 4 families and put my head in the sand and focused just on my own little thing that I was trying to build. And I even stopped even taking the time to listen to as many podcasts or being as, you know, as focused on personal development for a while, because I spent so much time with a hammer in one hand and a paintbrush in the other that I didn't even have time to really, you know, work on myself. So once I did finally, start listening to podcasts again, start listening to you guys again, started to, you know, work on my personal development, expand my network. I found a wonderful partner. He and I ended up linking up. We went bigger and we bought a 38 unit and I started attending the events. I remember coming to MM3, I think, and, you know, did the VIP thing, came to the VIP lunch. And I remember standing up and saying, I am Mr. Make It Happen at that lunch. And, you know, and Jake looked at me and he was like, yes, but, you know, don't always be the guy with a paintbrush in one hand and a hammer in the other, you know, like make it happen. Absolutely. But make it happen in a better, bigger way with a team.
I love that. So Lee, let's recap for the listeners. I think it's important. I don't want the listeners to say, hey, I got to go big right away. That's not what Lee is saying. I think Lee's journey is great, similar to ours. He started where he felt comfortable. Now, maybe he lost a little bit of momentum. He should have gone on a little bit quicker, but I love the duplexes and the quads to start out with because we start smaller. A 2 becomes a 4, becomes an 8, becomes a 16, becomes a 32, becomes 100, becomes 272. So that's the beauty of the journey because you don't know what you don't know. And I think the experience and being able to property manage these things, I love that. Let's talk about the first deal, the first duplex, the first quad. What did you learn from that deal and why did you like the deal?
I bought the deal as a sight unseen foreclosure auction in a transitional neighborhood, let's just say.
AKA crap, but it's okay.
Yeah, and it was built in 1894. So
wow. Who was the president? Who was the president in 18? Was it Grover Cleveland back then, or was it
probably
McKinley or somebody back then? Okay.
Oh man, it was, you know, the bricks held up the roof and the roof was caving in. So I bought it for 30. I walked in the door. I started swinging hammers. I didn't know what I was doing. I hired the low budget contractor. Ended up putting 100 into that. It took all my time, especially all my spare time, over the course of an entire year. So at the end of a year's worth of my dedicated focus, I had 2 doors that made me about $200 a month, and that's if nothing broke.
Let me recap that for everybody. The only thing that Lee did right, and I commend him for this, is he got a deal on the imaginary conveyor belt that we talk about. So his deal's on. At least he got started. He took massive action. And that's where the success ends, right? Because all of a sudden, he's violating the 3 pillars of real estate: market cycle. In that part of the market cycle, he probably should have been buying something maybe a little bit newer, maybe something probably a little bit bigger. I think he could have stretched himself a little bit more. I don't know how the debt component was. The exit strategy, I don't think he was thinking about exit strategy at the time. He's like, I'm going to buy this duplex and put all my work and effort into it. It's called ROE, return on effort. And was that return on effort worth it? $200? The only thing I'd say is I commend him for doing it because it got him in the game and he figured it out. On the next deal, what's the next deal look like after that one? You remember the next one?
I did a similar scenario with a house and then a 4-family and another house. And after that is when I finally realized that, if I'm going to take this thing to the next level, it took me 18 months to accumulate those 9 doors. And oh my gosh, brain damage, just all the work. Now, did I get better each time? Yes. Did I figure out the processes a little bit better each time? Yes.
Awesome.
So like slowly getting better, like the momentum was a hockey stick and this was the very bottom, wide and slow and not very much upward momentum. But then because of that history and because I was a property manager, I think my out-of-state partner who had more money than I did, thought that, I knew what I was doing. I kind of thought that I did too. And he trusted the process and trusted me, and I trusted him, and we found a property and we closed on that 38 unit in October of 2019. And within, I think, a couple of weeks of actually the day I closed on that property, the same day that I closed on that property, I flew to MM3. I closed while on the airplane. So that is the day. Yeah.
So let's talk about the light bulb moments. The first light bulb moment is just getting on the phone, joining the community. The second light bulb moment is I just bought a house built in 1894. This is before the Spanish-American War of 1898. Let's put that in reference. I'm going to keep hammering how old this deal is. But
run around with muskets
and sabers, and there's still pirates back then, I think. But anyway, It's an old property. That's the second light bulb, because then the ROE. The third light bulb, when did that go off saying, I've got to go bigger? I mean, was it swinging the hammer? Was there a specific moment? Because I'll give you an idea, Lee, of my light bulb moment when I was with Jake and Gino. We already have like a couple hundred units. I am in the shed in my restaurant and I'm talking to Jake. I am literally putting away to-go containers. I'm putting away bags of flour. I'm literally doing $15 an hour work, and I'm negotiating an $11 million real estate transaction. I'm saying, there's something wrong here. What's wrong with me? That's the light bulb moment where I had fear of saying, I'm so comfortable doing all this menial manual labor work where my value is so much more. I'm about to sign and negotiate on a life-changing deal, which, by the way, we did close. And now that deal is probably more than doubled in value in the last 6 years. But that was my light bulb moment of saying, hold on a second, time out. I should be doing this. I really should be doing this stuff. Do you have that next light bulb moment for us?
I remember a few of them, but one that sticks out in my mind was I was at a construction site and I was patching a hole in the plaster at the top of a ladder, and behind me was a pile of rubble. I fell backwards off the ladder, and I had the hammer in one hand, or the spackle and the whatever in one hand, and I literally fell backwards, just like light flashing before my eyes, and I landed on this pile of rubble and bricks, and luckily there wasn't some sort of impaling object lying in there, because I could have broken my back. I could have died theoretically. I would have been alone on a second floor of a job site in a transitional neighborhood, and it was like, I shouldn't be doing this. That was a moment. And luckily I wasn't hurt. Luckily nothing, no results. But that was an eye-opening experience. I fell off a ladder onto a pile of bricks, and there totally could have been some sort of piece of wood or metal sticking up and could have impaled me and killed me. And that would have been it. And you would have never would have reached today. But though there's a few that stick out in my mind, and that's one of them. So I'm not supposed to be doing this. I need to go find bigger, better partners and be able to afford to pay other people to do the jobs that I don't know how to do.
So that's the idea when you said to yourself, I'm not just a landlord, I'm not just an asset manager, I am a multifamily entrepreneur. And that's what we're trying to build in Jake and Gino by creating multifamily entrepreneurs. And it's a tough journey. And there's nothing wrong with buying duplexes and quads, with the idea that if you're not just buying these assets to try to accumulate them and to try to garner just a little bit of cash flow, because there's equity in these things, there's life-changing businesses, because every little deal you do is a cash monster where you're able to actually take these deals and create little mini businesses out of them. And then one day repackage them, sell them, and possibly go bigger. Before we go to this 272 units where you were able to raise $6 million bucks, I mean, I love the deal. Why did you pick the market you're in? And just talk about what your buy right criteria is, what you're looking for in a deal right now.
First of all, I picked this market for selfish reasons. It's my family. My family's here. My sister is a WashU grad who never left, and I wanted to be in St. Louis. I like St. Louis. It's a great town. There's wonderful activities and things to do. It's a linear market. It is a Midwest river town with a baseball team. There's a couple dozen of them. I mean, it's no different than Cincinnati or Indianapolis or Kansas City or, any one of those towns. It is a Midwest river town with a baseball team. There are good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. There are places where people are moving to. There are places where people are moving out of. That's just, you pick your neighborhood and you know where it is. It's my backyard. So originally I picked my backyard because I looked at myself and I realized, where does my value? My value is the fact that I know how to run an apartment complex. I know how to find an apartment complex. I know to underwrite it. And I'm a fantastic asset manager, and I can do diligence and know and have all the connections with the local vendors like banks and property management and all the things that are needed in order to run a mini business is here in St. Louis. Now, since then I've grown, and now we're looking outside of just St. Louis, of course, because eventually as you do more reps with bigger weights, your muscles grow, and so does your abilities. So now we look in 6 states for properties because I know that I can buy bigger properties.
And what is your
bigger states?
What's your buy right criteria in St. Louis? Drilling it in, because for everybody out there, a linear market just basically means that prices don't boom or bust. There's more cash flow. Cap rates are a little bit higher, which is fine. If you know that, I started out in a linear market in Rochester, New York. It wasn't my backyard. If it had been my backyard, I may never have met Jake, and I may have continued to expand because the cash flow is a lot better in those markets. And when you do go into recession, your $100,000 per door property doesn't become 60 overnight. Your $60,000 property may become 55,000, but you're still going to cash flow from it. So what's the buy right criteria for you're looking for?
100 plus, garden style, pitched roof, 1980s or newer. That's what I'm looking for every day. Now I'll make small adjustments in one direction or the other, and one, pro versus one con, of course, but that's it. Straight down the middle, 100 plus, so that I can put a full-time on-site manager, full-time on-site maintenance staff member at the property. Garden style, because I don't want to have elevators. I don't want to have to deal with all of the rigmarole of boilers and chillers and those types of things. Pitched roof, because flat roofs leak. It's basically a swimming pool on top of your building. So no flat roofs. And 1980s or newer, because I want to have drywall walls. I want to have 2x4s that are not actually 2 inches by 4 inches. And I want to have, wiring that's made out of copper as opposed to any other material that's out there in the world that they ever had. I want to have plastic pipes because they can bend and they can, shift underground. They don't necessarily have the issues with pitting or all the things. And I want to have copper water supplies because they last. And I want to have standard everyday breaker boxes because they're easily replaced and or repaired, versus all of the other things like that I've dealt with. Screw in fuse boxes, knob and tube wiring, aluminum wiring, flat roofs. I've done it enough times to realize what not to do. So now I look specifically for that. And really, I like the bigger, the better. Now it's, if I can go 200 plus, that's really the goal. If I can get to 200 plus.
This is awesome, everybody. For everybody out there, take some notes here because this is important. Lee is spewing the Jake and Gino mantra. That is his buy right criteria. For everybody out there, whatever market you're in, every market is going to be different. Now, I know if Lee finds a deal that is significantly discounted and he's got a 200 unit asset, let's say, for instance, it's worth 70 a door, but he can pick it up for 30 a door. He'll probably do that because he can budget it in and do the work. But where we are in the market cycle, it's very unlikely he's going to find a deal that is materially discounted at that price point. That's why he's got his buy right criteria dialed in for his market. I challenge all the listeners, dial in your buy right criteria. I would even add, do median income. See, Lee knows where to stay in his market. So he knows intuitively, let's say I'm not going to go on the west side of the market or the east side. I'm going to stay in these neighborhoods. So when you're doing your buy right criteria, figure upon also the median income or where you want to invest in, what markets and what markets you don't want to stay away from. I guess the only other thing I would probably add would be amenities. If you want to look for washer dryer hookups, dog parks, clubhouses, if that's what you're looking for, what resident base are you serving? Now, Lee, 272 units. How did you find this deal, and what did you really like about the deal?
It was, I am a recovering multifamily broker with Marcus and Millichap. So, and a recovering property manager too. I'm still getting over that one too. But a relationship that I built while being a broker with another firm, Berkadia specifically. We ran into each other. I let him know that I had recently picked up a 70 unit down in a suburb outside of St. Louis, and that I'm actively looking to continue to buy. He said, well, which just so happens, we just sold a property in that town for, I think he sold it for like 150 a door, something like that. Some record breaking number for this smallish town, tertiary outside of St. Louis. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Like, I'd love to be able to see your next opportunity that you bring to the table. And he said, just so happens we just got off the phone with another owner who owns a 272 unit in the same town. This is going to be a great opportunity. I said, awesome. I'm going to call you every day until I have those numbers. Like, just want to let you know, like, you're going to get a call or a text from me every 24 hours until you provide me with what I need in order to be able to make you an offer on that deal. And it just so happened, I followed up, the money's in the follow-up. Another thing I learned from my coach within the organization at Jake Gino is money's in the follow-up. And he got me those numbers. We immediately toured the property, immediately submitted an offer at the seller's full asking price because it was a reasonable asking value. And did whatever it took to be able to get it because we recognized the opportunity in the property. To be able to buy something that was built in 2004 for $79 a square foot is unbelievable. It's got basically brand new roofs, and the value add component required such little capital expenditure that it made the numbers just sing. It was an all utilities included property. So in order to we'll get through it real quick. In order to add an additional $270,000 in net operating income, all we have to do is transfer the electric bills into the tenants' names. Mm-hmm. That's it. That doesn't include loss to lease or pet rents or all the other ways you can increase value or increase net operating income. Literally just decreasing that electricity expense that was being provided by the original owner adds an extra, let's call it $4 million in value to the property. So
at least
$15 million.
At least, yes.
That's at like almost a 7 cap.
Yes.
And this is a tertiary market 45 minutes outside of downtown St. Louis where the schools are actually good. It's a good neighborhood.
What was the price per door on this? Do you remember what the blended price per unit was?
$58,800 a door.
So $58,800 per unit. So for everybody out there, there's risk because it's a tertiary market, right? There's risk because maybe it's a smaller market. You may not find property management, but the replacement on an asset that was built in 2004, I would venture to say is at least 130 to 150,000 per unit right now. I mean, that's probably conservative. So you're buying it for a third of the replacement value. That's number one. You're buying a new asset or a newish asset built in 04. The roofs are new. This is something where you're not going to have to go and do any kind of plumbing, any kind of electrical, no breaker panels. It's basically cosmetic. If you budget maybe another $5,000, if you're going to go wild and spend $10,000 a door, you're going to be into an asset for $70,000 per door with a replacement of a 150. So you're hitting a home run on this thing. What other value adds did you have on this? Because if you're able to do rubs on there, and everybody out there, what Lee's talking about, this is the traditional mom and pop that Jake and Gino teach their students to buy. They're still out there. People still are not utilizing rubs. People still are not doing pet fees. They're still not doing poop DNA. They're still not doing all these late fees, all these different charges where you can raise the NOI. What else did you like about the deal?
$150 below market across the board. That's first of all. So immediate loss to lease, we can start chipping away at that. Zero rubs program. So we do a bill back of an average of $35 per door across the board. No pets. They did not allow anybody to have any pets. I'm talking like they didn't even let people have no gerbils. So we walk in and we're like, all right, we're gonna put the dog poop bag picker upper thingies, trash cans, whatever, all around the property, and we're gonna allow pets. And we charge a $400 move-in fee per pet owner, and then in addition to that, we have a $25 per month pet rent that we charge. Huge. They were charging $15 for an application fee. 15. So they were covering their cost. So it costs $15 to run an app.
Yes.
We charge $50.
Yes.
Which means we make $35 per application, and we have approximately 50 people that apply per month. That's an extra, whatever, let's call it. What is that? $1,700 a month?
20 grand a year.
Yeah. Every month, it's all across the board. It's a beautiful thing. That's like adding 3 more apartments to the property, but spending no money by just charging application fees.
Wow.
We actually do enforce our late fees. So that that increases that. We do enforce move out, damage fees, which the original seller was never doing that. They would just let people out of their lease, and they would never charge any enforcement of the terms of the contract or like damage fees. You name it, like all the things. You can't run it like your tenants are your children. You have to run it like it's a business. Mm-hmm. And if my tenant moves out and they trash the unit and leave it with $2,000 worth of damage, guess what? You owe us $2,000, and if your security deposit is only $500, guess what? Mm-hmm. We're gonna send you to collections, and we're gonna get that $1,500, or at least we're gonna attempt to. Mm-hmm. We're not just gonna let you go, down the street. Wow. But there's a million different ways to be able to increase. It's probably a B minus. So I wouldn't it's not an asset where we're gonna do things like amenity fees or valet trash. It's not like a B plus or an A. Mm-hmm. But there's we will be creating about an additional $500,000 in net operating income across the board in the first 18, 24 months of purchasing this property. And then after that, we're going to add a supplemental loan to our Fannie Mae large balance loan that's fixed for 10 years, by the way, at 3.48%. I think we're never going to see interest rates that low ever again. We fixed it in place for 10 years. We'll add a supplemental loan, and all of our investors will get back 100% of their original capital investment into the deal and get a double-digit cash on cash return on the property during the initial investment period prior to that, supplemental loan. Let's call it the refi. That's our business plan.
To say this is a life-changing deal would probably be an understatement. I think even life-changing for a lot of your investors that they're going to get their capital back. They're going to be in a newer asset. And 10 years, you're investing for decades. We talk about investing for decades. This is a deal that you're investing for the decades. Now, when you raise the capital, can you give us a couple tips on capital raising that you really learned throughout this process? Because $6 million to raise is not an insignificant sum of money.
So when I say it's a team, first of all, want to cover that. It's not just Lee, one guy doing all the work. I have a team that I work with and I've relied on to help do the things that I'm not as good at, fill your gaps. So I have a team that helps raise money. My capability to raise money is probably in about $1 million range-ish alone by myself. But I rely on others to go and work and bring and recruit them onto my team who already have pre-established networks of accredited investors to be able to turn to and who trust and rely on that person to invest in the deal. So I brought on 2 additional partners to be a part of our team, and their role is is marketing and and they work with the investor relations side of the business, and they also worked well with raising the capital. So I raised some, they raised a lot of it, and those teammates of mine were very beneficial or helpful to us in making sure that we had investors. I couldn't have done this by myself. There's no way.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot of things on the podcast, and one of the recurring themes is multifamily is a team sport. You're not good at everything, and whatever your weaknesses are, just either hire it out, and if it's really worth it, give somebody equity to help you with that component, because you're not great at swinging a hammer. You almost kill yourself. You're not great at raising capital. You don't like property management. There's certain things that you don't like to do, and that's fine because we're all like that. But know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And if you can't raise capital, but you want to go into bigger deals, there are people out there that want to, partner up and network with people who are doing that. Before we sign off, what's the future look like for you? What are your next steps?
I'm actively looking for opportunities in 6 states: Missouri, Kansas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. We want large scale, not quite institutional sized assets, the ones that I just described, 100 plus garden style pitched roof, 1980s with value add components. And I'm building my team up. We are growing. I have 4 or 5 LOIs out right now. Of those, I'll be likely to win one of those deals. In which case, it'll be a deal similar to the one that we just finished speaking about, and I'll be looking for teammates to help me and my established team continue to close out and find the next opportunity. So. Now it's growing the team. I have a group in St. Louis that I'm building up where we tour commercial multifamilies with owners. The group is called Make It Happen Multifamily. I actually got Gino's stamp of approval, or not Gino, Marco's stamp of approval to use the Make It Happen name. And we do tours and pours where we tour a commercial size multifamily once a month with the owner. And then we do a networking happy hour Q&A discussion. It's like a mini money mixer event. It's like a mini version of that. I was inspired by you guys and what you do. And I've created this miniature version of that we do once a month here in St. Louis. I'm looking to grow that nationally. I want to have multiple people running a monthly property tour in major cities across the country. So I want to grow that group.
That is awesome. Before you share your contact information, I just want to really recap the story and the podcast for the listeners, because Lee started in 2017, and within 5 years, he's been able to really scale. And admittedly, the first 18 months, he was probably sleeping at the wheel. And, for most of us, 9 units is great in 18 months. I would have been thrilled. It took me 18 months to find my first deal with Jake, but I think Lee was to make it happen. And I'm going to do this. The IMA mentality. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And IMA is going to get burned out. And IMA almost killed himself falling off a ladder. So you have to reassess how IMA is going to grow. And I think a couple key components is those light bulb moments. When you have those epiphanies, listen to yourself and say, what can I do better? I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is you really need to take some massive education. And that's what Lee did. Number 3, you got to take some massive action and understand what your return on effort is. Just as much effort as buying an 1894 duplex or a quad as it is buying a 2014 272 unit deal where you raise $6 million. The effort is pretty close, but you need to do the smaller deals before you can get into the bigger deals and realize it. So I always say, think big, start small. And I think that's what Lee did. And those teachable moments as you're going over and providing value and learning what your strengths are and continuing to educate yourself and get out of your comfort zone, joining a community, whatever community that may be, getting around people who are like-minded, where you can raise the level of your peer group. And everyone's talking about multifamily. We're not talking about Kylie Jenner. We're not talking about the Kardashians. We're not talking about other things that's going on in the news. We're talking about how to build a business and how to thrive in this economy right now. That is truly important for the listeners. You need to get that in your life if you don't have that. Now, Lee, where can the listeners get a hold of you?
greenforestcapital.com. On there, you can literally book a call with me if you're interested in having a conversation about investing in larger apartment complexes, whether it be as a limited partner or as, potentially an active partner. We're looking for people that want to be boots on the ground, on-site type partners in those 6 states I just, described, and limited partners to partner with us and be able to let them stay focused on the things that they do best. Stay being a doctor. Don't be a landlord. Let me be the landlord and the guy that finds the right deals, because you're going to make more money relying on someone who has the experience, especially on your time. Time is the one thing you can't ever get back. So greenforestcapital.com. You can find me on Facebook, Lee Fjord. Literally, there aren't very many fjords out there, so it's pretty easy to find me. I put myself out there everywhere. And yeah, you can just email me, lee@greenforestcapital.com. Would love to, I love meeting new people, helping anyone willing to give. I'm a giver. So questions, happy to give you some of my time, and look forward to helping others now that I've learned a few things, at least, especially what not to do.
Wise words of wisdom. If you're a high level person, doctor, attorney, IT, tech, you don't know how to get into multifamily, but you want to start participating in the power. We didn't even talk about cost segregation on these deals and the tax benefits and the principal pay down. They're massive. I know Lee on this deal alone is probably going to get about $1 million worth of cost segregation benefits on this deal. We didn't have time to jump into it, but think about that. If you're a high income earner, how do I get a piece of that? Get on the call with Lee. Get his contact information and get on the call and start having that conversation. I want to thank Lee for, wanting to come back on the show and sharing his, I guess, painful story. I guess it's one of not change, but transformation. He's transformed himself from being a small multifamily investor to being a larger multifamily investor. Now, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And until next time, let's all go out there and make it a Movers and Shakers week. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Gino. I'll see you at MM5.
Yes, baby. November 5th and 6th. The financial vacation for smart people, my friend. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
You are looking to get involved in multifamily, this is where you need to be.
The team you've built is incredible.
There is no egos here. Everyone is always looking to help the other person.